Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I will be making a video on who the top 100 quarterbacks of all time are. Although this list is subjective, I will be doing it from a perspective that's similar to how the Pro Football Hall of Fame determines their inductees. I'll be going off accolades, numbers, and many other factors, and we'll be ranking every quarterback from 1 to 100. This list, I will only be doing quarterbacks 100 to 91. As for active players, I have around 15 on my top 100 list, and I will be judging them based on if they retired today, not their future careers. It's not a projection-based list, it's a reality-based list. You can discuss the list in the comments. Anyway, let's get into it. On each quarterback, I will have 6 advantages and 6 disadvantages, providing further context as to why they were ranked in their certain spot. I'll be going into further detail when I go over each respective quarterback. These lists of disadvantages and advantages may be subjective and may depend heavily based on era. I'm factoring the context of era very frequently and will provide further statistics and baselines to add emphasis to this. Checking in the number 100 spot, we have quarterback Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was a talented superstar in college. As a result, he was taken with the number 1 overall pick. With the high expectations of the number 1 overall pick, many questioned if Mayfield would be able to deliver in his rookie season. He silenced the doubters and threw for 27 touchdowns, one of the highest totals for a rookie quarterback in NFL history. He also led the Browns to a 6-7 record, which at a glance may not seem that great. This figure was the second highest by a rookie quarterback of all time when it occurred in 2018. However, Mayfield's success was short-lived, as the following season, Baker Mayfield threw over 20 interceptions under the guidance of head coach Freddie Kitchens. The Browns faltered and finished with a 6-10 record. Mayfield's talent was put into question for the majority of the season, and many were surprised that he was able to bounce back so easily in year 3. In year 3, he not only put up solid numbers, but he led the Browns to their first playoff win since the revival in the mid-1990s. Mayfield's impact on the Browns was great, but he lacked accolades. And after a few years as a journeyman, after struggling his final year with the Browns, he found his home in Tampa Bay. In Tampa Bay, he finally started putting up the numbers we're used to today, as last year he threw for over 40 touchdowns, and he now has multiple Pro Bowl appearances. Mayfield is not a great quarterback, but his accolades and performance speak for themselves. Mayfield's career stats are obviously inflated as a result of the era, but it's worth noting he is already in the top 85 for both passing yards and passing touchdowns. That being said, his accuracy stats linger behind the league average, as he has thrown a concerning amount of interceptions, and his career completion percentage of 63 is below average for the era. Overall, I felt like number 100 was a good spot for Baker Mayfield. He can continue rising up the list in the near future. At number 99, I have Tommy Thompson. Although some may view this as a somewhat controversial selection, I believe he deserves this recognition and flowers. Tommy Thompson was a dominant quarterback and a pioneer for the modern age, the 1940s. He was a 2-time NFL champ and was an All-Pro and Pro Bowler. He led the league in passer rating twice and touchdown percentage 3 times, and was far and away the best quarterback in the league for a 3-year span. He threw for 25 touchdowns in 1948, which is a downright insane figure for the time. The only reason why he's not higher is the fact that his dominance was short-lived, as after a 3-year prime, he flamed out of the league very quickly, and he's somewhat lacking in the accolades department. He played in a weak quarterback era, and his passer rating for his career isn't ideal. Thompson did all of this with only being able to see out of one eye. He was undefeated as a starter in the playoffs, posting a 3-0 record. Overall, he was one of the clutchest quarterbacks in his era. He may have had a great supporting cast, but Tommy Thompson deserves to be on this list. I decided 99 was a good spot to put him, as although he is nowhere near a Hall of Fame level talent, he is definitely someone who should be acknowledged and recognized as one of the 100 best quarterbacks in NFL history. At number 98, I got a name a lot of you might be familiar with, even if you didn't watch him play. Archie Manning was the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints for most of the 70s and some of the 80s. Although he played on some really horrible teams, Archie Manning was a bright spot and oftentimes was regarded as one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Unfortunately, though, his rosters were extremely depleted. As a result, his statistics were very inconsistent, and he had a dreadful 35-101-3 record as a starter. Despite this, during Manning's best seasons, he made it clear why he was one of the better quarterbacks in the league. In 1978, he was the UPI MVP for the NFC and made multiple Pro Bowls as a starting quarterback. His seasons were very productive throughout his career, and he's up at 91 all-time for career pass yards. 91 is an incredible number for a quarterback that played in the 1970s, and the fact that he was the first member of the Saints Ring of Honor and Hall of Fame only adds to his accolades. Manning, however, he only averaged 6.6 yards per attempt and had a 67.1 rating. He threw way more interceptions than touchdowns and ultimately didn't even provide the upside. He got sacked 396 times, but I'm not really attributing that to him. Rather, I'm attributing that to his horrendous offensive line that he was given with the New Orleans Saints. Manning may have had the potential to be way higher on the list had he played for a different team, but as of right now, as a result of his lack of accolades and some horrible counting stats, I feel like 98 is the appropriate place to put a legend of today's game, Archie Manning. Number 97, I have a very notable quarterback and Cowboys legend in Don Meredith. Meredith was one of the best quarterbacks of the 1960s. During his 5-year prime, there was no better quarterback in the NFL, arguably, as he was both a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro. Meredith was dominant, throwing for more than 20 touchdowns 3 times, consistently putting up yards per completion numbers that were near the top of the league, and great yards per attempt figures as well. He was a well-rounded quarterback, but he definitely had his fair share of flaws. For instance, he got sacked a bunch, his completion percentage was quite low, even by his era's metrics, and perhaps most importantly, he had a very short career in prime compared to his counterparts. Not only that, he routinely choked in the playoffs with the 1-3 playoff record as a starter, and a lot of his production could be attributed to the fact he had multiple very talented players, including Hall of Fame receiver Bullet Bob Hayes. That being said, Meredith's 47-32-4 record as a starter and his status as a 3-time Pro Bowler make him well deserving of a spot on the list, especially even though the spot may be at 97. Meredith's status as the original Cowboys star quarterback coupled with an elite depot make him an intriguing candidate for any top 100 list. At the number 96 spot, I placed Chad Pennington. Chad Pennington is an interesting guy because in reality he's a major what-if story. What if the injuries hadn't affected his arm so much? What if he had better situations and better weapons? But I'm just going to be basing this on how his career turned out, which is still a pretty darn good career. Chad Pennington was an MVP runner-up during his prime and won Comeback Player of the Year twice. His 66% career completion percentage was number 2 all-time when he retired, and still is number 12. He led the league in that statistic twice, and he had a 90.1 career passer rating, which was spectacular by his era standards, and is still a pretty good rating today. Not only that, he also posted a winning record as a starter, and was very productive throughout his entire Jets and Dolphins tenure. He did struggle with injuries, though, a ton, and as a result, he only had 4 seasons where he started more than 10 games. This very short prime and 0 Pro Bowl appearances keep him from being higher on my list. He also was relatively unsuccessful in the playoffs, posting a 2-4 playoff record. Chad Pennington was a pretty solid quarterback, but he was never really considered top 5 when he was in the league, despite his MVP runner-up season showing otherwise. His lack of all-pros are a bit concerning for someone in the top 100, but ultimately I could not leave Chad Pennington out, as his efficiency was unbelievable and he was a franchise quarterback for a good portion of his career. As for his spot, I felt like Chad Pennington would fit best around where I placed him, right at 96, although many argue he should be higher, and I can also see many arguing that he should not even be on the list at all, as his lack of accolades seem to prove that. Coming in at number 95, I placed Rams quarterback Jim Everett. Everett was a very solid quarterback for the duration of his career and was oftentimes regarded as a top 10 QB in the league. He led the league in passing touchdowns twice and threw for over 4,300 yards in 1989. This figure was top 10 all-time at the time, so it was a very impressive number. And Everett consistently put up seasons with an 80 or higher passer rating, something that was relatively rare during the era he played. Everett struggled with some bad teams throughout his career, but he was able to elevate them for the most part, and Everett's career numbers are excellent for the era he played in. That being said, Everett did have his fair share of flaws. Later in his career, once he joined the New Orleans Saints, he struggled throwing too many interceptions. And even with the Rams, towards the end of his career, his efficiency numbers had dropped considerably and his production was somewhat lacking. Another downside with Everett is he lacked the production in clutch moments, as he was 2-3 in the playoffs with the 57 passer rating in the playoffs, and he also only had 11 career fourth quarter comebacks. Overall, Everett's career was pretty solid, and he was one of the better QBs during his playing days, but his lackluster clutch factor and mediocre statistics in some areas keep him out of my top 90. I concluded 95 was a good spot for Jim Everett, and that's why he sits right here. For number 94, I went in an interesting direction, but I'd recommend you hear me out first. At the number 94 spot, I decided to place Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill initially was kind of regarded as a bust after being drafted in the first round, but he quickly proved his doubters wrong, as by the end of his Dolphins tenure, he'd established himself as a league average quarterback. But that was not where he truly got his spot on the list. He earned his spot on the list during his short but productive tenure with the Tennessee Titans. With the Titans, he won Comeback Player of the Year and made the Pro Bowl after coming off the bench to put together an outstanding season and led the Titans to an AFC Championship game. He then followed that up with another great year where he was top 5 in the league in many important statistical categories and threw for over 30 touchdowns. Tannehill's career numbers as well stack up quite well among all-time quarterbacks, as he is top 41 for both pass yards and touchdowns. And this is not to mention former receiver Ryan Tannehill has been a productive runner throughout his career. He's rushed for 27 rush touchdowns, which is way more than his counterparts. The reason why Ryan Tannehill isn't even higher on my list is for the sole fact of how brief his prime was. He only had 3 or so seasons as a top 10 quarterback in the league. Although his career numbers are certainly respectable, it is worth noting he played a very pass-happy era. With the Dolphins, he often struggled to get things done as a quarterback, and even after his success with the Titans, towards the end of his Titans career, he continued to struggle and even got benched for Will Levis. Not only that, many claim the Titans system was tailor-made for Ryan Tannehill to succeed, and he barely had to do anything in order to look like a good quarterback. This is evidenced by his very few playoff pass yards per game, despite the fact that the team was winning. For the number 93 spot, I have Charlie Connerly, a name many Giants fans claim deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Although I disagree with the sentiment, it is worth noting Charlie Connerly had an unmistakable impact on the game of football and was a star quarterback during his prime. Connerly was a multi-time Pro Bowler and was once even a second-team All-Pro. That same season, he finished as the NEA MVP and the runner-up in AP MVP voting. He was an NFL champion once and made the championship game a whopping 4 times. In his one win, he had a 152.1 passer rating in that game. Not only that, Connerly continued to win consistently throughout his career, posting a 57-31 record as a starter. He would consistently lead the NFL in all kinds of statistical categories. While he doesn't stack up to a modern quarterback in terms of many of his statistics were among the best in the league for his time. His yards per attempt especially would always stand well above the rest of the league, and the fact that he even has a positive touchdown to interception ratio for his career, despite playing mostly in the 50s, speaks volumes about his efficiency. Charlie Connerly may not be a Hall of Famer or Hall of Fame caliber in my opinion, but he is not one that should be forgotten by history. The reason he's not higher is he wasn't always a consistent starter, and in fact, he lost his starting job to Y.A. Tittle at the end of his career. And the fact that some of his statistics didn't even stack up too well for his era. For example, his completion percentage was merely average for his era and is dreadful by today's standards at 50.1, and even that figure is inflated heavily by a few seasons. Throughout his career, Charlie Connerly was mostly an average to above average starter, but he had a few years where he was truly great. That is why I decided to rank him right here at the 93 spot. For number 92, I decided to put Trent Green. Trent Green is a quarterback from near the modern era, so he was able to put up some very good numbers during his tenure. But what fascinates me about Trent Green is he was able to do so with multiple teams. Trent Green during his prime was a force to be reckoned with, and there's a good reason why he's generally regarded as a top 10 quarterback in Chiefs history and in Commanders history. He also had a very solid season with the greatest show on turf Rams prior to his injury in 2000. Trent Green is a fascinating player and prospect, but his numbers speak for themselves. During his prime, he threw for over 4,000 yards for 3 straight seasons and threw for over 3,690 for 5 straight. He made multiple Pro Bowls, and I believe he should have made many more. But perhaps his most impressive figure is that he averaged 7.6 yards per attempt for his career, which was a good number for any era, but in the era of the early 2000s when short passes were the norm, this figure is quite impressive, as he led the league once in that category. Green's prime, however, was very short, as he frequently dealt with injuries, was only the full-time starter for 6 seasons of his career. He also, at times, wasn't the most accurate, as his completion percentage was closer to league average, and he did throw his fair share of interceptions. Overall, Trent Green was a pretty good quarterback, but his short career keeps him from being higher on the list. 92 seemed to be a reasonable spot for me to place a guy like Trent Green. The number 91 spot, I have Kerry Collins, who honestly is primarily on this list because of his longevity. That being said, Kerry Collins' achievements cannot be understated. When his career first started, he was a high draft pick and had sky-high expectations, and ultimately, at first, it looked like he was quite good. He was a Pro Bowler and led the expansion Panthers to an NFC Championship game. This would, however, be the high point of his career as he struggled with legal troubles and lack of work ethic. Kerry Collins then became an NFL journeyman, but in his time as a journeyman, he was ultimately very successful in multiple different places. He threw for over 40,000 yards in his career and even made a Super Bowl with the New York Giants. Late in his career, he made a Pro Bowl with the Tennessee Titans and was the runner-up for Comeback Player of the Year twice. Kerry Collins was not always the best quarterback, but the fact he was able to be a league average quarterback with good upside for around 15 to 17 years in the NFL cannot be understated. Kerry Collins is not ranked higher due to the fact he is lacking in accolades and threw 196 career interceptions. His efficiency stats are not great and were generally slightly below average even in his best seasons. He threw for a lot of yards at times, which made him a solidly respected quarterback, but ultimately his Super Bowl performance and his efficiency stats hold him back a ton. Kerry Collins seems to be a perfect candidate for the 91 spot. Thank you everyone for watching. I know it's been a long time since I last uploaded, but I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed because this list took me a long time to make and compile. I will have numbers 1 to 90 coming soon, then a big video with all the numbers plus honorable mentions and trends I noticed. I might do this for other positions in the future. Please let me know your thoughts and feedback in the comment section. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching.